The billionaire CEO watched his 18-year-old fix a billion-dollar bug live. The boardroom was silent. 12 of the most powerful executives in the tech industry sat frozen in their leather chairs. On the massive screen before them, a young man with sharp eyes and steady hands was doing the impossible. He was rewriting an entire system architecture in real time. The same system that had brought a billion-dollar empire to its knees. The same system that had kept the CEO awake for 6 consecutive nights. The same system that was 12 minutes away from being saved by a teenager no one in that room had ever met. Adrian Luxford, the billionaire CEO of LuxTek Systems, leaned forward in his chair. His hands gripped the edge of the conference table so tightly his knuckles turned white. He watched the screen with an expression that shifted from confusion to disbelief to something far more terrifying. Recognition. The young man on the screen pushed his hair back from his forehead as he typed. And in that single gesture, Adrian saw himself. The same jawline. The same intense focus. The same way of tilting his head when solving a complex problem. It was like watching a mirror reflect a version of himself from 20 years ago. His voice came out as a whisper, barely audible above the hum of the air conditioning. That is my face. No one in the room dared to breathe. No one dared to move. Because every single person at that table had just witnessed something that would change everything. Not just for the company. Not just for the stock price. But for the man who had built this empire from nothing and was now watching it be saved by a ghost from his past. The video continued playing. The young man's fingers flew across the keyboard with supernatural speed. Lines of code appeared and disappeared. Simulations ran and resolved. And with each passing second, a billion-dollar catastrophe was being neutralized by someone who should not have existed. Someone Adrian Luxford had never known about. Someone who carried his blood, his genes, his genius. His son. But how did this happen? How did a child he never knew existed become the one person capable of saving everything he had built? To understand that, we need to go back. Back to a time before the boardroom. Before the billions. Before the bug that threatened to destroy it all. Back to a love story that never got its ending. Back to the moment when Adrian Luxford made the biggest mistake of his life. 19 years earlier, the tech world was a different place. Smaller. Hungrier. Full of dreamers who believed they could change everything with the right code and enough determination. Adrian Luxford was one of those dreamers. At 28 years old, he was already making waves. The heir to a modest tech consulting firm, he had transformed it into something far more ambitious. LuxTek Systems was his vision. A company that would revolutionize artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. A company that would make him one of the most powerful men in the world. But he was not there yet. Not even close. He was still fighting for every contract. Still proving himself to investors who doubted his vision. Still battling a board of directors who saw him as nothing more than a young man with big dreams and no real experience. It was at a university tech conference in Boston that everything changed. Not for his company. For his heart. The conference was filled with the usual presentations. Graduate students showing off projects that would never see the light of day. Professors promoting research that had no practical application. Adrian was bored. He had only come because a potential investor insisted on meeting him there. He was counting the minutes until he could leave. Then she walked onto the stage. Leah Kendrell was 22 years old. A senior in computer science with a reputation that preceded her. They called her a prodigy, though she hated the word. She found it reductive. As if her talent was something she had been born with rather than something she had fought for every single day of her life. Her presentation was about neural network optimization. A topic that should have been dry and technical. But the way she spoke about it was different. She made it sound like poetry. Like magic. Like the future itself was waiting to be unlocked by anyone brave enough to try. Adrian forgot about his investor meeting. He forgot about the contracts waiting on his desk. He forgot about everything except the woman on that stage with fire in her eyes and brilliance in every word she spoke. After her presentation, he approached her. He expected her to be impressed by who he was. Most people were. But Leah looked at him with an expression that was equal parts curiosity and suspicion. "You are Adrian Luxford," she said. "The LuxTek guy." He smiled. "Guilty as charged." She did not smile back. "I read about your company. Interesting approach to machine learning integration. Though your memory allocation protocols could use some work." Adrian blinked. No one had ever critiqued his technical work to his face before. Especially not someone he had just met. Especially not someone who was 6 years younger than him and still in university. He should have been offended. Instead, he was fascinated. "Tell me more," he said. She did. For 3 hours, they sat in a corner of the conference hall and talked about code and algorithms and the future of technology. She challenged every assumption he had. She questioned every decision he had made. She made him think harder than he had thought in years. By the end of the night, he was hooked. Their relationship started slowly. Coffee meetings that turned into dinner dates. Technical discussions that turned into personal confessions. She told him about her childhood in a small town where no one understood why she spent all her time on computers. He told her about the pressure of living up to his family name. The expectations that felt like chains around his neck. With Leah, he felt free. For the first time in his life, he felt like someone saw him. Not the heir. Not the CEO. Just Adrian. She felt the same way. With him, she did not have to dumb herself down. She did not have to pretend to be less than she was. He matched her intellect. He challenged her thinking. He made her laugh in a way no one ever had. Their chemistry was effortless. Natural. Inevitable. But Adrian's world was not kind to effortless things. His world was strict. Corporate. Image-controlled. Every decision he made was scrutinized by a board of directors who cared more about appearances than substance. Every relationship he had was evaluated for its potential impact on the company's reputation. When the board found out about Leah, they were not pleased. "She is a nobody," one of them said during a private meeting. "A university student with no connections. No family name. No resources. What happens when the press finds out you are dating someone like her?" Adrian defended her. "She is brilliant. More brilliant than anyone in this room." The board member laughed. "Brilliance does not matter. Image matters. Perception matters. You are the face of this company, Adrian. You cannot be seen with someone who does not fit our brand." Adrian should have told them to go to hell. He should have walked out of that meeting and never looked back. But he was young. Ambitious. Terrified of losing everything he had worked so hard to build. So he stayed silent. And his silence gave them permission to act. The sabotage started subtly. Leaked photos of Adrian and Leah appeared in tech blogs with captions questioning his judgment. Rumors spread about her being a gold digger who was only interested in his money. Anonymous sources questioned whether she had actually earned her academic achievements or if Adrian had pulled strings on her behalf. Leah was devastated. She had never wanted the spotlight. She had never asked to be part of Adrian's public life. And now she was being torn apart by people she had never met for crimes she had never committed. Adrian tried to protect her. He issued denials. He threatened legal action against the blogs. But the damage was done. The board had made their point clear. She was a liability. And liabilities had to be eliminated. The final confrontation came on a rainy Tuesday night. Adrian had been called into an emergency board meeting. When he arrived, he found every member of the board seated around the table with expressions that ranged from pity to contempt. The chairman spoke first. "Adrian, we need to discuss your future with this company." Adrian felt his stomach drop. "My future? What about my future?" The chairman slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents. Contracts. Financial projections. All of them showed the same thing. Investors were pulling out. Partners were reconsidering their commitments. The company's stock was dropping. "This is because of her," the chairman said. "Because of your relationship with that woman. You have a choice to make, Adrian. You can keep her and watch everything you have built crumble. Or you can let her go and save this company. Save yourself." Adrian looked at the documents. He looked at the faces around the table. He thought about his father, who had started this company with nothing and worked himself to death building it into something worth inheriting. He thought about the employees who depended on him. The investors who had trusted him. The future he had promised to create. And then he thought about Leah. Her smile. Her laugh. The way she looked at him like he was the only person in the world who mattered. He loved her. He knew he loved her. But love was not enough. Not in his world. Not with these stakes. He made his choice. The breakup was brutal. Adrian told Leah that he needed to focus on his company. That their relationship was too complicated. That he was not ready for the kind of commitment she deserved. She saw through every lie. She knew exactly what was happening. And the betrayal in her eyes was something Adrian would never forget. "You are choosing them over me," she said. "After everything we have been through. After everything we have shared. You are choosing a boardroom full of people who do not even know you over the one person who actually does." Adrian could not meet her eyes. "I am sorry, Leah. I have to do this." She shook her head. "No. You are choosing to do this. There is a difference." She walked out of his apartment that night and never looked back. What Adrian did not know was that Leah was carrying something with her when she left. Something that would change both of their lives forever. Something growing inside her that would one day save his empire. She was pregnant. She had planned to tell him that night. She had rehearsed the words 100 times. She had imagined his face lighting up with joy. She had pictured them building a future together. A family. A life. Instead, she walked out of his apartment with a broken heart and a secret she would keep for 18 years. She considered telling him afterward. She picked up the phone a dozen times. She drafted emails she never sent. But every time she got close, she remembered the look on his face when he chose his company over her. She remembered the board members who had destroyed her reputation without a second thought. She remembered the world he lived in. A world of power and money and image. A world that had no room for people like her. She made her own choice. She would raise this child alone. She would protect him from the chaos of Adrian's world. She would give him a life filled with love instead of politics. Warmth instead of corporate warfare. She would give him everything Adrian had been unable to give her. 9 months later, Kai Kendall was born. He came into the world screaming. A healthy baby boy with his mother's dark hair and his father's intense eyes. Leah held him in her arms and made him a promise. "You will never feel unwanted. You will never feel invisible. You will never have to wonder if you are enough. Because you are. You always will be." She kept that promise. Every single day for 18 years. Kai grew up in a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood. There was no mansion. No private schools. No army of nannies and tutors. There was just Leah and her son. A team of 2 against the world. But what Kai lacked in resources, he made up for in raw talent. The boy was brilliant from the moment he could hold a thought in his head. He was reading at 3. Doing multiplication at 4. Asking questions about how computers worked at 5. Leah recognized the signs immediately. She had been the same way as a child. But Kai was different. Kai was more. It was as if he had inherited the best parts of both his parents and combined them into something entirely new. At 11, he wrote his first piece of functional code. A simple program that organized his mother's email inbox. Leah watched him work with a mixture of pride and terror. Pride because her son was extraordinary. Terror because she knew exactly where that extraordinary nature came from. At 12, Kai discovered hacking. Not the malicious kind. He was never interested in causing harm. He was interested in understanding. He wanted to know how systems worked. How they could be broken. How they could be fixed. Leah set strict rules. White hat only. Ethical hacking. Never break into systems for personal gain. Never cause damage. Never hurt anyone. Kai followed those rules religiously. But within those boundaries, he pushed every limit he could find. He explored networks that should have been impenetrable. He found vulnerabilities in systems that were supposed to be foolproof. He learned more about cybersecurity in 3 years than most professionals learned in a decade. At 15, he started studying LuxTek systems. It began as curiosity. He had heard the name mentioned in tech articles. He had seen the company's products reviewed in magazines. He knew that LuxTek was one of the biggest players in AI and cybersecurity. He wanted to understand why. So he started digging. He reverse engineered their publicly available software. He studied their architecture. He analyzed their code until he understood it better than the engineers who had written it. He never told his mother about this obsession. He knew it would worry her. He knew she would ask questions he was not ready to answer. Because Kai knew. He had known for years. Leah thought she had protected him from the truth. She thought she had kept Adrian's identity a secret. But Kai was too smart to be fooled. He had seen the way his mother tensed whenever LuxTek was mentioned on the news. He had noticed the old photographs hidden in a box at the back of her closet. He had done his own research. His own investigation. He knew that Adrian Luxford was his father. He knew that Adrian did not know he existed. He knew that his mother had chosen to raise him alone rather than force a relationship with a man who had already abandoned her once. He respected her choice. He never confronted her about it. He never demanded answers or explanations. But late at night, when his mother was asleep, he would sometimes look at pictures of Adrian Luxford online. He would study the man's face. Search for traces of himself. Wonder what it would be like to have a father who knew his name. He always pushed those thoughts away by morning. He had his mother. He had his code. He did not need a father who had never wanted him. Or so he told himself. At 18, Kai had become something remarkable. A quiet storm, Leah called him. He did not seek attention. He did not crave recognition. He simply existed in his own world of algorithms and innovations, creating things that would have amazed people twice his age. He could build an entire operating system from scratch before breakfast. He could find security flaws in systems that had been audited by the best in the industry. He could solve problems that stumped entire teams of engineers. But he kept it all hidden. Leah had taught him the importance of staying invisible. Of protecting himself from a world that would try to exploit his gifts. Stay small, she always told him. Stay quiet. The moment they notice you is the moment they try to control you. Kai understood. He had seen what happened to his mother when she caught the attention of Adrian's world. He had no intention of repeating her mistakes. So he stayed in the shadows. He kept his genius to himself. He built and created and innovated in secret, waiting for the day when he would be ready to step into the light. That day came sooner than anyone expected. 8 weeks before the boardroom confrontation, LuxTek Systems launched HelixCore. It was supposed to be a triumph. The most advanced machine learning infrastructure ever created. A system that would revolutionize everything from medical diagnostics to airline routing to energy management. Billions of dollars had been invested in its development. Entire nations had signed contracts to integrate it into their critical systems. Adrian Luxford had staked his entire reputation on HelixCore. It was supposed to be his legacy. His gift to the world. Proof that everything he had sacrificed, including the woman he loved, had been worth it. For the first 3 weeks, everything seemed perfect. The system performed flawlessly. The reviews were glowing. Stock prices soared to record highs. Adrian allowed himself to feel something he had not felt in years. Pride. Then the bug appeared. It started as a minor anomaly. A memory allocation error that caused a brief system slowdown. The engineering team dismissed it as a one-time glitch. Nothing to worry about. Easily fixed. But it was not easily fixed. Because the glitch was not a glitch at all. It was a symptom of something far more dangerous. A cascade failure waiting to happen. A flaw so deep in the system architecture that it had been invisible to everyone who had tested the software. When the flaw was finally identified, the engineering team went pale. If HelixCore was triggered at scale. If it was running hospital systems and airline networks and power grids simultaneously. The cascade failure would not just crash the software. It would crash everything connected to it. Hospitals would lose patient data in the middle of surgeries. Airplanes would lose navigation systems mid-flight. Power plants would fail without warning. The potential for catastrophe was beyond calculation. And there was no fix. The engineering team tried everything. They worked around the clock. They brought in outside consultants. They offered bonuses and incentives and desperate pleas for anyone who could solve the problem. Nothing worked. The news leaked within days. Tech journalists ran stories about the fatal flaw in LuxTek's miracle system. Stock prices plummeted. Countries threatened to terminate their contracts. Investors demanded answers that Adrian did not have. The board smelled blood in the water. They had tolerated Adrian for years because he delivered results. But now he had delivered the biggest disaster in the company's history. They wanted a scapegoat. They wanted someone to blame. They wanted his head on a platter. Adrian had not slept in 6 days. He looked like a ghost. A shell of the man who had once commanded boardrooms with unshakable confidence. He knew what was coming. He knew the board was going to fire him. He knew his legacy was about to be destroyed. He had no idea that salvation was coming. And it was coming from the one person he had never expected. Kai Kendrill had been following the HelixCore crisis from the moment it became public. He watched the news reports with a mixture of fascination and frustration. Fascination because the technical problem was genuinely interesting. Frustration because he could see the solution so clearly that he could not understand why the LuxTek engineers could not see it themselves. For 2 weeks, he resisted the urge to get involved. This was not his problem. This was not his company. This was the empire built by the man who had abandoned his mother before Kai was even born. But then the report started talking about the real-world consequences. Hospitals that had already integrated HelixCore were scrambling to develop backup systems. Airlines were delaying flights. Power companies were issuing warnings. Real people were going to be hurt if this bug was not fixed. Kai could not ignore that. He was many things, but he was not someone who could stand by while innocent people suffered. So he downloaded the public beta files of HelixCore. He set up his own simulation environment. He started digging into the code. It took him less than an hour to find the flaw. He stared at his screen in disbelief. The bug was obvious. Painfully obvious. It was a fundamental error in the memory allocation pathways that should have been caught during the earliest stages of development. Somehow, it had slipped through every layer of testing. Every quality assurance check. Every security audit. He understood why. The error was hidden by the brilliance of the overall architecture. The code was so elegant, so sophisticated, that no one had thought to question the foundational assumptions. They had been so impressed by what the system could do that they had never noticed what it could not do. Kai spent the next 12 hours writing a patch. Not a temporary fix. Not a workaround. A complete solution. He rewrote entire memory allocation pathways. He redesigned the cascade prevention protocols. He built in redundancies that should have been there from the beginning. When he was finished, he ran his simulation. The system performed flawlessly. The bug was gone. HelixCore was saved. He sat back in his chair and stared at the screen. He had just fixed a billion-dollar problem in less than a day. He had just done what an entire team of elite engineers could not do. He had just saved a company that belonged to his father. Now he had to decide what to do with that power. Leah found him the next morning, still sitting at his computer. His eyes were red. His hands were shaking. There was an intensity in his expression that scared her. "Kai," she said softly. "What have you done?" He did not answer right away. He just looked at her with those eyes. Adrian's eyes. The eyes that had haunted her for 18 years. "I fixed their bug," he finally said. "HelixCore. I figured out what was wrong and I wrote a patch." Leah felt the blood drain from her face. "You did what?" "Mom, people are going to get hurt if this system fails. Hospitals. Airports. Power plants. I could not just sit here and do nothing." Leah sank into a chair. Her hands were trembling. "You cannot send that to them. They will ask questions. They will want to know how you got access to their code. They will investigate you. I used publicly available files. Everything I did was legal. That is not the point. The point is that they will find out who you are. They will connect you to me. They will connect you to him." Kai's jaw tightened. "Is that really what you are worried about? That Adrian Luxford might find out about me?" Leah's eyes filled with tears. "I have spent 18 years protecting you from that world. 18 years keeping you safe. I cannot watch them destroy you the way they tried to destroy me." Kai stood up from his chair. He walked over to his mother and knelt in front of her. He took her hands in his. "Mom," he said gently. "I know." Leah blinked. "You know what?" "I know who my father is. I have known for years." The silence that followed was deafening. Leah stared at her son with an expression of pure shock. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. "How?" she finally whispered. Kai shrugged. "I am a hacker, Mom. Figuring out secrets is kind of what I do." Leah let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "All these years. You knew all these years and you never said anything. I was waiting for you to tell me. When you were ready." Tears streamed down Leah's face. "Kai, I am so sorry. I should have told you. I should have." He squeezed her hands. "You did what you thought was right. You protected me. You gave me everything I needed. You have nothing to apologize for." Leah pulled him into a hug. They held each other for a long moment, 18 years of secrets and silence finally breaking apart. When they separated, Kai looked at his mother with determination in his eyes. "I have to send this patch," he said. "Not for him. Not for LuxTek. For the people who will be hurt if I do not. I cannot live with that on my conscience. Leah studied her son's face. He looked so much like Adrian. But he was not Adrian. He was better. He was the man Adrian should have been. She took a deep breath. If you are going to do this, you are going to do it right. No anonymous submission. No hiding in the shadows. If you are going to save that company, you are going to show them exactly who you are. Kai frowned. What do you mean? Leah stood up. Her fear was still there, but something else had joined it. Pride. Fierce, overwhelming pride. I mean that you are going to record a video. You are going to demonstrate your solution live. And you are going to show Adrian Luxford exactly what he lost when he walked away from us. Kai stared at his mother. A slow smile spread across his face. That, he said, is actually a great idea. The video took 6 hours to record. Kai was a perfectionist. He wanted every line of code to be visible. Every explanation to be clear. Every demonstration to be flawless. He did not introduce himself by name. He did not explain his connection to the company. He simply appeared on camera as a young man with sharp eyes and steady hands, ready to solve an impossible problem. He started by explaining the flaw. Not in a condescending way. Not in a way that made the LuxTek engineers look stupid. He explained it as a teaching moment. A lesson in how even the most sophisticated systems can hide fundamental weaknesses. Then he demonstrated his solution. Live. In real time. Line by line. He rewrote the memory allocation pathways. He ran simulations that showed the cascade failure being triggered and then prevented. He proved, beyond any doubt, that his patch worked. At the end of the video, he paused. He looked directly into the camera with an expression that was impossible to read. This company changed my life before I was born, he said. You should know what you almost destroyed. Then the video ended. Kai attached the file to an email. He wrote a single line in the subject field. Patch proposal. Urgent. From someone who understands your system better than you do. He sent it to every member of the LuxTek board of directors. Then he turned off his computer and went to bed. The email arrived at LuxTek headquarters at 3 in the morning. It sat in a dozen inboxes for hours before anyone noticed it. The board members were too busy preparing for the meeting where they planned to fire Adrian Luxford to check their messages. It was the VP of engineering who saw it first. He was the youngest member of the board. The most technically minded. The only one who still read his own emails instead of delegating them to assistants. He almost deleted it. The subject line sounded like spam. Or worse, like some arrogant outsider who thought they knew better than the professionals. But something made him open it anyway. Maybe curiosity. Maybe desperation. Maybe just the hope that someone, somewhere, had a solution to the nightmare they were all living through. He watched the video. All 45 minutes of it. His jaw dropped lower with each passing minute. By the time it ended, his hands were shaking. He picked up his phone and called the chief technology officer. You need to see this, he said. Right now. Before the board meeting. Get me everyone with technical clearance. Now. The meeting was scheduled for 9 in the morning. By 8:30, half the engineering department had watched the video. They had run their own simulations. They had verified the patch. They had confirmed what seemed impossible. It worked. The solution actually worked. The VP of engineering ran down the hallway toward the boardroom. He burst through the doors just as the meeting was about to begin. Every head turned toward him. Adrian Luxford looked up from the table with exhausted eyes. The board members glared at him with varying degrees of annoyance. You need to see this, the VP said, out of breath. All of you. Right now. He connected his laptop to the main screen. He pressed play. And the video began. Every person in that boardroom watched in stunned silence as an 18-year-old boy did what their entire engineering team could not do. They watched him identify the flaw. Explain its origin. Demonstrate its solution. Save their company. No one spoke. No one moved. No one even breathed. Adrian Luxford watched with an expression that evolved from confusion to disbelief to horror. Because as the video played, he started to notice things. The shape of the boy's jaw. The intensity of his eyes. The way he pushed his hair back from his forehead when he was concentrating. It was like watching himself. A younger, sharper version of himself. A mirror reflecting something that should not exist. The boy on the screen finished his demonstration. He looked directly into the camera. This company changed my life before I was born. You should know what you almost destroyed. The video ended. The silence that followed was absolute. Adrian Luxford stood up slowly. His legs felt weak. His heart was racing so fast he thought it might explode. He looked at the faces around the table. The board members. The executives. The people who had been ready to destroy him. They were all staring at him. Waiting. Watching. He whispered the words that had been forming in his mind since the moment the video began. That is my face. No one argued with him. No one tried to deny what they had all seen. The resemblance was too obvious. Too impossible to ignore. Adrian turned toward the door. He walked out of the boardroom without explanation. Without permission. Without looking back. He had to find her. He had to find Leah. He had to understand how this was possible. His driver asked where they were going. Adrian gave him an address he had not thought about in 18 years. An address he had buried in the deepest part of his memory along with all the other things he had tried to forget. The drive took 45 minutes. It felt like 45 years. When they arrived, Adrian told his driver to stay in the car. He walked up to the small house alone. No security. No assistance. No protection. He rang the doorbell and waited. The door opened. Leah stood before him. Older now. Wiser. With lines around her eyes that had not been there when he knew her. But still beautiful. Still strong. Still the woman who had haunted his dreams for nearly 2 decades. She did not seem surprised to see him. She looked at him with an expression that held 18 years of pain and anger and something else. Something that might have been relief. They stared at each other in silence. The past stood between them like a wall. But so did the future. A future that had just announced itself to the world. Adrian's voice cracked when he finally spoke. Leah. Does he know? Her face crumpled. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She shook her head slowly. No, she whispered. You were never supposed to find out like this. A sound came from behind her. Footsteps in the hallway. Adrian looked past Leah and saw him. His son. Standing in the doorway of the living room. Looking at the father who had never known he existed. Kai studied Adrian with those familiar eyes. The same eyes that had stared out from a video screen just an hour ago. The same eyes that had solved an impossible problem and saved $1 billion empire. Silence stretched between them. 18 years of absence. 18 years of questions. 18 years of wondering what could have been. Then Kai spoke. His voice was calm. Steady. Without a trace of bitterness. You are welcome. Adrian broke. Not as a CEO. Not as a billionaire. Not as the man who had built an empire from nothing. He broke as a father. Tears streamed down his face. His legs gave out beneath him. He sank to his knees on Leah's doorstep and wept like he had not wept since he was a child. He wept for the years he had missed. The first words he had not heard. The first steps he had not witnessed. The birthdays and holidays and ordinary Tuesday nights that had passed without him. He wept for the woman he had loved and abandoned. The choice he had made. The cowardice that had cost him everything that truly mattered. He wept for the son who had saved him. The boy who had every right to hate him but had chosen to help him instead. The young man who had inherited his genius but not his weakness. Leah watched him cry. Part of her wanted to slam the door in his face. Part of her wanted to scream at him for 18 years of absence. Part of her wanted to hurt him the way he had hurt her. But another part of her. The part that had loved him once. The part that still remembered the man he could have been. That part felt something unexpected. Compassion. She looked at Kai. Her son. Their son. He stood in the hallway with an expression she could not quite read. Not anger. Not triumph. Something quieter. Something like hope. She made a decision. Come inside, she said to Adrian. We need to talk. Adrian rose from his knees slowly. His legs felt unsteady. His face was wet with tears he did not bother to wipe away. He looked at Leah with an expression of pure vulnerability. The mask he wore for the world had fallen completely. There was no billionaire CEO standing on her doorstep. There was just a man who had realized the magnitude of his mistakes. Leah stepped aside and let him enter. The house was small. Modest. Nothing like the mansions and penthouses Adrian had grown accustomed to over the years. But it was warm. Filled with photographs and books and signs of a life well lived. A life he had not been part of. He looked around at the evidence of 18 years without him. School pictures on the wall showing Kai at various ages. Trophies and certificates displayed on shelves. A worn couch where mother and son had probably spent countless evenings together. This was the home his son had grown up in. This was the life Leah had built without him. And it was beautiful. More beautiful than anything money could buy. Kai followed them into the living room. He did not sit down. He stood near the window with his arms crossed over his chest. Watching. Waiting. Giving nothing away. Adrian looked at him. Really looked at him. It was like seeing a photograph come to life. Every feature. Every expression. Every gesture. They were all familiar. All his. But there were differences too. Things that belonged entirely to Leah. The shape of his mouth. The way he held himself. A certain softness around the eyes that Adrian had never possessed. This was their son. A perfect combination of both of them. The best parts of two people who had loved each other and lost each other and created something miraculous in between. Adrian did not know where to begin. There were too many words. Too many apologies. Too many questions. 18 years of silence could not be broken with a single conversation. Leah sat down on the couch. She gestured for Adrian to take the chair across from her. He sat. The distance between them felt like miles. How long? Adrian finally asked. His voice was hoarse. Broken. How long have you known? Leah understood what he was asking. How long had she known she was pregnant when he left? I found out 2 weeks before you ended things, she said quietly. I was going to tell you that night. The night you chose your company over me. Adrian closed his eyes. The pain that washed over him was physical. Visceral. He could feel it in his chest like a knife. I did not know, he whispered. Leah, I swear to you, I did not know. I know you did not know, Leah replied. That is not why I kept it from you. Then why? Leah took a deep breath. Because you showed me who you were. You showed me what mattered most to you. Your company. Your board. Your reputation. You made your choice, Adrian. And I made mine. You could have told me afterward. You could have called. You could have. Could have what? Leah interrupted him. Her voice was sharper now. Harder. Could have begged you to be a father when you could not even be a partner. Could have forced my way into your world so your board could destroy me again. Could have watched my son grow up surrounded by people who saw him as a liability instead of a miracle. She shook her head. No. I was not going to do that to him. I was not going to let your world touch him the way it touched me. Adrian had no response. Everything she said was true. He had shown her who he was. He had made his choice. And that choice had cost him everything that mattered. He looked at Kai. His son had not moved from his position by the window. His expression was unreadable. Why did you do it? Adrian asked him. Why did you save my company? Kai considered the question for a long moment before answering. I did not do it for you, he said finally. I did it because people were going to get hurt. Hospitals. Airports. Power plants. Real people with real lives who had nothing to do with your corporate drama. I could not let them suffer because your engineers made a mistake. Adrian nodded slowly. That is fair. It is the truth. Silence fell between them again. The weight of 18 years pressed down on all of them. There was so much to say. So much to process. So much to understand. Adrian turned back to Leah. I am not asking for forgiveness, he said. I know I do not deserve it. I am not asking for a relationship. I know I have not earned one. But please. Please let me try to make this right. Let me be part of his life. Let me show him that I can be better than I was. Leah looked at Kai. This was not her decision to make. It was his. Kai met his mother's eyes. A silent conversation passed between them. Years of trust and love and understanding communicated in a single glance. Then Kai looked at Adrian. I do not hate you, he said. I used to think I would. I used to imagine what I would say to you if I ever met you. All the angry words. All the accusations. All the questions about why you left and why you never came back. He paused. But when I actually saw you. When I watched you on the news, exhausted and desperate and losing everything you had built. I did not feel anger. I felt pity. Adrian flinched. The word hit him harder than any insult could have. You spent your whole life building something that could collapse in a day, Kai continued. You sacrificed everything. Your relationships. Your happiness. Your family. And for what? A company that was ready to throw you away the moment things went wrong. He shook his head. That is not the life I want. That is not the person I want to be. And that is not the father I need. Adrian's heart sank. He understood. He was being rejected. And he deserved it. But then Kai said something unexpected. But that does not mean you cannot change. That does not mean you cannot become someone different. Someone better. My mom taught me that people are not defined by their worst moments. They are defined by what they do afterward. He walked closer to Adrian. Close enough that they could see the resemblance between them clearly. Father and son. Two versions of the same face separated by years and choices and regret. You want to be part of my life, Kai said. Fine. Prove it. Not with money. Not with power. Not with grand gestures. Prove it by showing up. By being present. By putting people before profits for once in your life. Adrian looked up at his son. Hope flickered in his chest. Small and fragile but real. I can do that, he said. I will do that. We will see. Kai turned and walked out of the room. A moment later, Adrian heard a door close somewhere in the house. Leah and Adrian sat alone in the living room. The air between them was heavy with history. He is remarkable, Adrian said softly. Leah smiled. The first genuine smile she had given him since he arrived. I know. You raised him well. I raised him to be nothing like you. Adrian accepted the words without flinching. He knew they were meant as a statement of fact rather than an insult. And yet he saved me, Adrian said. He could have let my company burn. He could have watched me lose everything and felt satisfied. But instead he spent hours writing code to fix a problem that was not his responsibility. Leah nodded. That is who he is. That is who I raised him to be. Someone who does the right thing even when it is hard. Even when it costs him something. Even when the person he is helping does not deserve it. Adrian looked down at his hands. The hands that had signed contracts worth billions. The hands that had shaken with presidents and prime ministers and the most powerful people in the world. They felt useless now. Worthless. I wasted so much time, he said. I built an empire but I lost everything that mattered. And I did not even realize it until today. Leah studied him carefully. She saw something in his face she had not seen in 18 years. Genuine remorse. Real pain. The possibility of change. She did not forgive him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But she recognized that this moment was important. Not for her. Not for him. For Kai. Her son deserved to know his father. Not the corporate titan. Not the billionaire CEO. The real man underneath all the armor. Whatever that man turned out to be. What happens now? She asked. Adrian shook his head. I do not know. I have to go back to the office. The board is probably still in session. They were about to fire me before your son saved everything. Are they still going to fire you? Adrian considered the question. Probably not. The patch works. The crisis is over. They will pretend they always believed in me and take credit for finding the solution. Leah made a sound of disgust. That is exactly why I kept Kai away from your world. I know. And you were right. He stood up slowly. I need to go deal with this. But I meant what I said. I want to earn my place in his life. I will do whatever it takes. Leah stood up as well. She walked him to the door. Do not make promises you cannot keep, she said. He has heard enough empty words to last a lifetime. If you are going to be in his life, you need to mean it. I mean it. Prove it. Adrian nodded. He walked out the door and down the path to his waiting car. Before he got in, he turned back to look at the small house where his son lived. 18 years. He had missed 18 years. He was not going to miss another day. The drive back to LuxTek headquarters felt different than the drive out. Adrian had left as a man facing destruction. He was returning as a man who had been given a second chance. Not professionally. That seemed almost irrelevant now. Personally. He had a son. A brilliant, remarkable son who had saved his company and asked for nothing in return. A son who had every right to hate him but had offered him a chance instead. Adrian was not going to waste that chance. When he arrived at the office, the chaos had reached a new level. News had leaked that an anonymous source had provided a working patch for the HelixCore bug. Journalists were demanding information. Investors were calling with questions. The stock price was starting to recover. Adrian walked into the building like he owned it. Because he did. The board members were still in the conference room, waiting for him. They looked at him with expressions that ranged from confusion to relief to calculation. These were men and women who had been ready to destroy him hours ago. Now they were trying to figure out how to position themselves as his allies. Adrian despised them all. He stood at the head of the table and looked at each of them in turn. Some met his eyes. Others looked away. "I know what you were planning," Adrian said calmly. "I know you were going to fire me this morning. I know you had already drafted the press release. I know you had already contacted my replacement." Silence. No one denied it. "I also know that you changed your minds the moment that video appeared. The moment someone else solved the problem you could not solve. The moment it became clear that getting rid of me would be a mistake." The chairman cleared his throat. "Adrian, we were simply exploring all options. In a crisis of this magnitude, it is our responsibility to." Adrian held up his hand. The chairman stopped talking. "I do not care about your excuses," Adrian said. "I do not care about your justifications. What I care about is this. That video was sent by my son." The room went completely still. Every eye focused on Adrian with laser intensity. "I did not know he existed until this morning," Adrian continued. "His mother raised him alone for 18 years. She kept him hidden from this company and from me. And despite that, despite having every reason to let us fail, he spent hours writing code to save us." He let that sink in before continuing. "My son is a genius. More brilliant than anyone in this room. More brilliant than me. And he did what none of our engineers could do. He fixed the unfixable." The VP of engineering spoke up. "The patch is remarkable. I have never seen anything like it. Whoever wrote that code understands our architecture better than the people who built it." Adrian nodded. "He taught himself. By reverse engineering our public releases. He has been studying LuxTek systems since he was a teenager." Murmurs spread around the table. The implications were starting to sink in. The chairman leaned forward. "Adrian, if this young man is really your son, the optics could be complicated. We need to consider how to handle this publicly." Adrian felt anger rise in his chest. "Optics. You want to talk about optics? From a stakeholder perspective?" "No." Adrian's voice was sharp. Cold. "We are not spinning this. We are not managing it. We are not turning my son into a PR opportunity." He looked around the table with disgust. "For 18 years, this board has controlled every aspect of my life. You chose who I could date. Who I could marry. What image I had to project. And I let you. I let you because I thought the company mattered more than anything else." He shook his head. "I was wrong. I lost the woman I loved because of this board. I missed my son's entire childhood because of choices I made to protect this company. I am not making those mistakes again." The chairman frowned. "Adrian, be reasonable. We have responsibilities to our shareholders." "And I have responsibilities to my family," Adrian replied. "For the first time in my life, I am going to honor them." He pulled out his phone and sent a text to his executive assistant. A moment later, she appeared in the doorway. "Clear my schedule for the next 2 weeks," Adrian told her. "Cancel everything. Meetings. Appearances. Conference calls. All of it." The board members exchanged alarmed looks. "Adrian," the chairman protested. "You cannot simply disappear in the middle of a crisis." "The crisis is over," Adrian replied. "My son solved it. The patch works. The contracts are safe. The stock is recovering. Everything else can wait. But this is not a discussion." Adrian's voice left no room for argument. "I have spent 20 years putting this company first. I am taking 2 weeks to put my family first. If anyone has a problem with that, they can submit their resignation. No one spoke. No one moved. Adrian nodded. Good. Meeting adjourned. He walked out of the conference room without looking back. His executive assistant hurried after him. Sir, where should I say you are if anyone asks? Adrian paused. Tell them I am handling a personal matter. Tell them I will be available for true emergencies only. And tell them that any attempt to contact me about anything less than an actual crisis will result in immediate termination. Yes, sir. Adrian continued walking. He had no idea what he was going to do with the next 2 weeks. He had no experience being a father. He had no relationship with his son. He did not even know where to begin. But he was going to figure it out. He was going to show up. He was going to prove that he could be different. For the first time in his adult life, Adrian Luxford was going to put something before his company. The next morning, Adrian arrived at Leah's house at 9 o'clock. He had not slept much. He had spent most of the night thinking about what to say. How to approach this. How to begin building a relationship with a son who did not need him. He rang the doorbell and waited. Leah answered. She looked surprised to see him. You came back, she said. I told you I would. She studied his face. He was wearing casual clothes instead of his usual suit. No tie. No expensive watch. He looked almost normal. Come in, she said. He is in his room. Adrian entered the house. He stood awkwardly in the living room, not sure what to do with himself. Leah disappeared down the hallway. A moment later, Kai emerged. He looked tired. Like he had not slept much either. You are here, Kai said. It was not a question. I am here, Adrian confirmed. Why? Because I said I would be. Because I want to know you. Because I have 18 years to make up for and I do not want to waste another minute. Kai considered this. His expression gave nothing away. What are you planning to do? He asked. Buy me things. Take me to fancy restaurants. Introduce me to famous people. Adrian shook his head. No. I was thinking we could just talk. Get to know each other. Figure out who we are to each other. Kai raised an eyebrow. You have no idea how to do this, do you? Adrian smiled ruefully. None whatsoever. I have never been a father. I do not know the first thing about it. But I am willing to learn if you are willing to teach me. Something shifted in Kai's expression. A hint of respect. Maybe even amusement. All right, Kai said. Let us talk. They sat down at the kitchen table. Leah made coffee and then excused herself, giving them space. For the first hour, the conversation was awkward. Stilted. Two strangers trying to find common ground. Adrian asked about Kai's interests. His hobbies. His plans for the future. Kai answered briefly. Computers. Coding. Security systems. He had not decided what he wanted to do with his life yet. Adrian shared stories about his own journey into tech. The early days of LuxTek. The challenges of building a company from nothing. Kai listened with cautious interest. Slowly, painfully, they began to find a rhythm. By the second hour, the conversation had become more natural. They discovered shared interests. A love of problem solving. A fascination with how things work. A tendency to see patterns where others saw chaos. They also discovered differences. Adrian was driven by ambition and legacy. Kai was driven by curiosity and justice. Adrian saw the world in terms of power and influence. Kai saw it in terms of problems to solve and people to help. But the differences were not barriers. They were bridges. They gave them things to discuss. Things to learn from each other. By the third hour, Kai was showing Adrian some of his personal projects. Code he had written. Systems he had designed. Ideas he had been developing. Adrian was stunned. His son's work was extraordinary. More innovative than anything LuxTek's best engineers had produced. This is incredible, Adrian said, looking at a neural network optimization algorithm Kai had developed. How long did this take you? A few weeks, Kai shrugged. It was just a side project. A side project. Adrian shook his head in disbelief. Kai, this is worth millions. Maybe billions. Do you have any idea what you have created here? Kai looked uncomfortable. I do not do this for money. I know. That is what makes you different from me. Adrian sat back and looked at his son with new eyes. Kai was everything he had wanted to be but had never quite managed. Brilliant without being arrogant. Ambitious without being ruthless. Driven without being obsessed. Leah had done an incredible job. She had taken Adrian's genes and turned them into something better. Something purer. I want to help you, Adrian said. Not financially. Unless you need it. But professionally. Personally. However I can. Kai was quiet for a moment. Then he asked a question that caught Adrian off guard. Why did you leave her? Adrian felt his heart clench. Leah. Yes. Why did you walk away? What was so important that you gave up the woman you loved? Adrian took a deep breath. It was the question he had been dreading. The one he did not know how to answer. I was scared, he admitted. I was young and ambitious and terrified of losing everything I had worked for. The board threatened to destroy the company if I stayed with her. And I believed them. Was it worth it? Adrian looked around the modest kitchen. At the photographs on the walls. At the evidence of a life he had not been part of. No, he said quietly. It was not worth it. I built an empire but I lost my soul. I became exactly the kind of person I always swore I would never be. He met Kai's eyes. I cannot change the past. I cannot undo the choices I made. But I can change the future. I can be different from now on. If you give me the chance. Kai studied his father's face. Looking for deception. Looking for manipulation. He found neither. Okay, Kai said finally. We can try. It was not forgiveness. It was not acceptance. But it was a beginning. Adrian felt tears prick his eyes. Thank you. Do not thank me yet, Kai replied. I have very high standards. And I have been watching you fail to meet them for 18 years. Adrian laughed. It was the first genuine laugh he had experienced in longer than he could remember. I will try not to disappoint you, he said. We will see. Over the next 2 weeks, Adrian kept his word. He showed up every day. Not with gifts or grand gestures. Just with his presence. He learned about Kai's life. His favorite foods. His sleep schedule. His quirks and habits. The way he hummed when he was concentrating. The way he paced when he was working through a problem. He learned about Leah too. How she had built a career as a freelance security consultant. How she had sacrificed opportunities to stay close to Kai. How she had created a life of quiet dignity in the shadow of Adrian's world. He learned to cook. Badly at first, then slightly better. Leah taught him her grandmother's pasta recipe. Kai mocked his early attempts mercilessly. He learned to listen. To ask questions instead of giving orders. To be curious instead of certain. To admit when he was wrong. He learned what it meant to be present. To show up without an agenda. To spend time without expecting anything in return. It was the hardest thing he had ever done. Harder than building a company. Harder than negotiating billion-dollar deals. Harder than surviving boardroom betrayals. But it was also the most rewarding. By the end of the second week, something had shifted. The awkwardness had faded. The suspicion had softened. They were not yet a family. But they were becoming something. On the final day of his self-imposed sabbatical, Adrian sat with Leah on her back porch. Kai was inside, working on some project or another. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I have to go back tomorrow," Adrian said. "I know. But this is not going to stop. I am going to keep showing up. Every week. As often as I can. Whatever it takes." Leah nodded. She had watched him carefully over the past 2 weeks. Watched him struggle and stumble and try again. Watched him become someone she had not thought he was capable of being. She was not ready to forgive him. The wounds were too deep. The years were too many. But she was ready to acknowledge something. "You have changed," she said quietly. "I am trying to." She turned to look at him. For the first time in 18 years, she allowed herself to really see him. Not the man who had hurt her. Not the billionaire CEO. Just Adrian. He looked tired. Older. The arrogance that had once defined him had been replaced by something softer. Something more human. "Why now?" she asked. "Why did it take this long?" Adrian considered the question. "Because I almost lost everything," he said. "Because your son showed me what I had been missing. Because I finally realized that all the success in the world means nothing if you have no one to share it with." He looked at her with eyes full of regret. "I should have chosen you," he said. 18 years ago. I should have told the board to go to hell. I should have fought for us. But I was too weak. Too scared. Too blind to see what really mattered." Leah felt tears forming in her eyes. Tears she had not allowed herself to cry in years. "You broke my heart," she whispered. "I know. And I am so sorry. I will spend the rest of my life being sorry." She wiped her eyes. "That is not what I want. I do not want you to spend your life apologizing. I want you to spend it being better." "I will," Adrian promised. "For Kai. And for you. Even if you never forgive me. Even if we never become more than co-parents. I will be better." Leah nodded. She believed him. Against all odds. Against all evidence. She believed that this time, he meant it. They sat in silence as the sun finished setting. Two people who had loved each other once. Two people who had hurt each other deeply. Two people who were now bound together by a son neither of them had planned but both of them treasured. It was not a happy ending. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it was a beginning. 3 months later, LuxTek held a press conference to announce a new initiative. The Kendrill Innovation Lab. A state-of-the-art research facility dedicated to developing technology for social good. The lab would focus on healthcare, education, environmental sustainability. All the things that mattered to Kai. All the things that had nothing to do with profit. Adrian stood at the podium and made the announcement. Beside him stood Leah and Kai. The first time they had appeared in public together as a family. The press went wild. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Everyone wanted to know the story behind the mysterious young man who had saved LuxTek from disaster. Adrian had prepared a statement. A carefully crafted narrative that protected Kai's privacy while acknowledging his contribution. But when the moment came, he threw the statement away. "This is my son," he said simply. "His name is Kai Kendrill. He is 18 years old. And he is the most remarkable person I have ever met." He paused, gathering his thoughts. I did not know he existed until 3 months ago. His mother raised him alone because I made choices that I will regret for the rest of my life. I was not there for his first steps. His first words. His first day of school. I missed everything. He looked at Kai. His son met his gaze steadily. But I am here now, Adrian continued. I am here because he gave me a chance I did not deserve. A chance to be the father I should have been from the beginning. He turned back to the cameras. The Kendrill Innovation Lab is my way of honoring that chance. It is named after my son and his mother. The two people who showed me what really matters in life. The two people who gave me a second chance when I had no right to ask for one. He gestured to the rendering of the new facility displayed behind him. This lab will not exist to make money. It will not exist to boost our stock price. It will exist to do good in the world. To solve problems that matter. To create technology that helps people instead of exploiting them. He smiled. It was a genuine smile. Not the practiced expression he had worn for decades. That is what Kai would do, he said. So that is what we are going to do. The press conference ended. The reporters dispersed. The cameras stopped flashing. Kai walked up to his father. You did not have to do that, he said. Adrian nodded. I know. But I wanted to. You could have just written a check. Named it something neutral. Kept our relationship private. I could have. But that would have been the old me. The me who cared more about image than substance. The me who hid from the truth instead of facing it. He put his hand on Kai's shoulder. I am proud of you, he said. Not because you saved my company. Because of who you are. The person your mother raised you to be. The person I hope I can learn from. Kai looked at his father. The man he had wondered about for 18 years. The man he had every reason to hate but had chosen to give a chance instead. I am still figuring out what all this means, Kai said. Having a father. Being part of whatever this is. It is going to take time. I know. Take all the time you need. I am not going anywhere. Kai nodded. Then he did something he had never done before. He hugged his father. It was awkward. Uncertain. Neither of them knew exactly how to hold on. But it was real. And it was a start. Leah watched from a distance. She saw her son embrace the man who had abandoned them both. She saw 18 years of pain begin to dissolve into something new. She did not know what the future held. She did not know if she would ever fully forgive Adrian. She did not know if they could ever be a real family. But she knew one thing for certain. Her son was going to be okay. He was going to be more than okay. He was going to change the world. And maybe, just maybe, Adrian would change with him. The story of the Luxford family did not end with a press conference or a new building or a single moment of reconciliation. It continued in small ways. Daily ways. The ordinary moments that make up a life. Adrian kept showing up. Every week without fail. He learned to be present. To listen. To put his family before his company. It was not always easy. He made mistakes. He fell back into old habits. He said the wrong things at the wrong times. But he kept trying. And gradually, slowly, impossibly, things got better. Kai started working at the Kendrill Innovation Lab. Not as an employee. Not as an executive. As a researcher. A problem solver. A creator. He developed systems that improved hospital efficiency. Algorithms that helped diagnose diseases earlier. Technology that made clean energy more accessible. He did not do it for fame. He did not do it for money. He did it because it was right. Adrian watched his son with a mixture of pride and humility. Kai was everything he had wanted to be but had never quite managed. And instead of feeling jealous or threatened, Adrian felt grateful. Grateful that his genes had produced something so extraordinary. Grateful that Leah had raised him so well. Grateful that he had been given the chance to witness it. Leah remained cautious. She did not rush into anything. She did not pretend that the past had not happened. But she also did not close the door completely. She and Adrian learned to co-parent. To communicate. To respect each other. They were not romantic partners. They might never be again. But they were partners in raising their son. And that was enough. Kai graduated from university with honors. He was offered positions at every major tech company in the world. Google. Apple. Microsoft. Amazon. They all wanted him. He turned them all down. He stayed at the Kendall Innovation Lab. Not because he had to. Because he wanted to. Because the work mattered. Because it was where he could do the most good. On his 21st birthday, Adrian threw him a party. Not a lavish corporate event. A simple gathering at Leah's house. Friends. Family. People who actually knew and loved him. Adrian gave a toast. 21 years ago, he said, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I walked away from the woman I loved and the son I did not know I had. I chose ambition over family. Success over love. Empire over everything else. He looked around the room at the faces of people who mattered. But 3 years ago, I was given a second chance. A chance I did not deserve. A chance that came in the form of a video from a teenager who fixed an impossible bug. He raised his glass. To Kai. My son. My teacher. My inspiration. You showed me what it means to do the right thing even when it is hard. You showed me that success means nothing without integrity. You showed me that it is never too late to change. He smiled. I am so proud of the man you have become. And I am so grateful that you let me be part of your life. Everyone drank. Kai looked embarrassed but also pleased. Later that night, Kai found Adrian sitting alone on the back porch. The same porch where they had first started to rebuild their relationship. Kai sat down beside him. Thank you, Kai said. For the party. For everything. Adrian shook his head. You do not need to thank me. I should be thanking you. For what? For saving me. Not just the company. Me. The person I was becoming. The person I had almost completely lost. He looked at his son. You know, when I watched that video for the first time, I thought it was going to destroy me. Finding out I had a son I never knew about. Realizing how much I had missed. It felt like the end of everything. And now. Now it feels like the beginning. The beginning of the life I should have been living all along. Kai nodded slowly. I used to dream about meeting you, he admitted. When I was a kid. I would imagine what you would be like. What you would say. Whether you would be proud of me. Adrian felt his heart clench. I am proud of you. More proud than I can possibly express. I know. That is the thing. You actually showed me. You did not just say it. You proved it. Every day for 3 years. You showed up. You changed. You became someone worth knowing. Kai looked at his father with something that might have been affection. That is all I ever really wanted, he said. A father who would show up. A father who would try. A father who would put his family first. And now. Now I have one. They sat in silence for a long moment. Father and son. Two people who had almost never known each other. Two people who had found each other against all odds. The stars came out overhead. The world continued to spin. Somewhere in the distance, a car honked. A dog barked. Life went on. But on that porch, in that moment, something had been completed. Not an ending. Not a beginning. A continuation. The story of Adrian and Leah and Kai was not a fairy tale. It was not a perfect redemption arc. It was messy and complicated and real. But it was theirs. And they were going to keep writing it together. For the rest of their lives. Because that is what family does. They show up. They try. They love each other through the hard parts. And they never, ever give up. This company changed my life before I was born, Kai had said in that first video. He was right. It had changed his life. But not in the way the company intended. It had given him a father. It had given him a purpose. It had given him a chance to prove that genius is not about intelligence. It is about heart. And Kai Kendrell had the biggest heart of all. If this story moved you, share with someone who believes in second chances. That's how love multiplies. Subscribe to Mr. Ellington Love Lines for more stories that heal, inspire, and remind you, broken things can still bloom. Leave a comment with one lesson you've taken from the story. Your reflection might inspire our next episode.